Hi, I'm Sydney, and today I'm going to be talking about Maxxxine. I made a reaction to Pearl, got copyright claimed, so now it's blocked in a bunch of countries, so you may not have seen it. So I'm taking a pause on the reaction game and just talking about some movies I've watched recently. I actually saw Maxxxine when it came out in theaters, which was kind of a while ago, so to be totally fair, my thoughts aren't as fresh, but it's also has marinated a little bit more in my brain. I will be discussing spoilers and will be talking in a way that I've assumed you've seen the film. Let's go. Let's face it, the overall consensus of this film is that it does not hold up to X and Pearl. If you disagree, I would love to hear why you believe that, but it is plainly just not as strong of a film. Now, if you're going in with the regards or disagreement to that notion, with the regard that, but this film is supposed to be mirroring film noir crime drama of the 80s. So if the tone isn't what you were expecting, or if it's not that agreeable, it's because it's true to the tone of films of that time. I don't know. I just don't think that measures up to a good excuse. There were quite a few concepts in this movie that were brought up and then sort of disappeared, and there was a lot of things that never quite had follow through. For example, I remember at the time one that felt like that was when she had given the VHS tape to her best friend to analyze where it had come from, and then he was murdered right after that, so nothing ever came of it. No one else found the VHS. There was no really follow through with that moment. So that might seem like a very random point, but for some reason when I was watching it, I wanted something to come of that. And plainly, the villain being the dad was very unsatisfying to me. To be honest, it wasn't very obvious to me, which I think to some people it was. I think once it was revealed, it was very obvious. But this movie overall left me feeling very meh. The only time that I felt like Mia Goth really got to shine was in the opening audition scene. And the strength of Maxxxine that we do see in X is quite lost in this film. Although she has that badass moment in the alley, at the end of the day, she still kind of ends up the damsel in distress, being tied to the tree and needing to be saved sort of thing, which doesn't really fall in line with her character. And I have an idea for what I think could have potentially made me feel better, or what would have been a more interesting alternative antagonist for me. Now, Pearl. During Mia Goth's monologue, it's mentioned that she was pregnant at one point and had lost the baby, and it was such a relief to her because she didn't want that thing growing inside of her, blah, blah. Now, in X, there's no mention of children. But what happens between Pearl and X, we actually have no idea. Like, a big question for a lot of people when Pearl ends is, how does Howard go from walking into this situation with Pearl and what she's done to being so committed to her in X? With that thought, I thought a much more interesting villain to me would have been if Pearl and Howard actually did have a child that was seeking revenge from Maxxxine, because perhaps through the crime investigation or whatever, they ended up with the tape, so they saw that Maxxxine had survived. And which, first off, how come police investigators weren't pursuing Maxxxine after such a crime like that, knowing that? Anyways, that's a whole other plot hole. But if they had a kid that was actually trying to avenge their parents' death, I think would have been maybe predictable in some ways too, but also totally unpredictable because we didn't know that they had a kid. I think it would have been interesting to see. And I can't even imagine with Pearl and Howard as your parents, what kind of childhood to adulthood they would have had, that I could imagine their kid would be pretty messed up. So I don't know. It's just a concept that I was thinking of pretty much right after I left the movie, I was like, I like this idea better. I don't know. Those are my overall thoughts. I won't deep dive too hard. My ranking of the films are as they are. I think X is the best, then Pearl, then Maxxxine. I watched X and Pearl back to back right before seeing Maxxxine just to have it super fresh. And the more I've sat with X, the more I like it. Pearl is still very good, but it's less thematically rich for me than X, and it's more of just a character study and visually beautiful. And then Maxxxine, who knows? I would be maybe willing to watch it again later down the line, but storyline was quite disappointing. I think the only save for me, I guess just to mention something positive, is I like Kevin Bacon. I thought his character, it was very fun to see him in such a character-driven role. I wasn't expecting his death. I thought they would have pulled him for more information first. They just killed him, no question. But that role was fun. Yeah, that's it. Let me know your thoughts on Maxxxine. Were you able to catch all the Easter eggs of references to X and Pearl throughout the film? Or were you more like me where maybe I picked up on a few, but then it wasn't until afterwards on YouTube where I was like, oh yeah, all of her substances are in a goose. Like in Pearl when she kills the goose. Yep, okay, got it. You know, lots of little things like that, which I can appreciate, but doesn't make up for the lack of good storytelling. Anyways, let me know your thoughts. That's it. Bye.